I think in life, you've got to really understand who you are to reach whatever peak success level that you're meant to reach. And I say that because you look at a guy like Matt Rhule and you look at another coach like Lincoln Riley, and they both have different skill sets. And you would hope they both understand what their strengths and what their weaknesses are. If you're Lincoln Riley, you're a coach who's known to be a great play caller. You build fantastic offenses and you know how to make sure your team scores points. Your offenses are always going to be great, led by solid quarterbacks who are going to get you into championship level games, right? But if you don't have the support on the back end to help you do everything that's needed to build the roster, to build the program, and to be able to recruit the players that you want in there, to get the culture right, to get the fans engaged, and to have the whole program humming on a level where they can actually reach a playoff or go to a Big Ten championship game, you're going to be limited because you're just a good play caller. Now, on the Matt Rhule side, I've talked about him. He's not the Lincoln Riley. He's the program builder. He's the one who builds the culture and shows you what it needs to look like. But when it comes down to play calling, when it comes down to which players are doing what, he needs the support in terms of defensive and offensive coordinators, special teams coordinator, who can go out and execute the right game plan to help them win games. Matt Rhule, understanding that about himself, will help him to obviously get Nebraska back to where we expect them or need them to be as fans to fully buy in. Matt Rhule today obviously fired John Butler, who was a good hire at the time. They brought him in to replace the defensive backs coach, Evan Cooper, like a year and a half ago. When he got there, it was awesome news. He came from the NFL. He had extensive experience in the Big Ten. And we knew that he was going to bring some sort of a resume that we could all buy into, get behind, and get excited about. And there was a chance in the future where he could level up in case Tony White left. That obviously came around bowl season last year when Tony White left for Florida State. And things just didn't click. There were two issues. Number one, Nebraska lost a lot of guys to the NFL. They also lost some guys to the portal. They tried to reload as much as they possibly could, but they were lacking in certain areas. They were lacking on the defensive line size, as we all know. They were also lacking at linebacker. Nebraska's linebackers and defensive line were so much better last season that although the defense ranked, I think, 24th nationally. Let me double check that. The defense ranked 24th nationally this season, 23rd nationally this season. Although they were that high, only 6 spots behind their 17th ranked unit last year. When it came down to it against Penn State, against Iowa, they just got absolutely obliterated. And, you know, a part of it's as the season wears on, but the other part is they just weren't built and they weren't running the right plays to help them be successful in those spots. They got blown off the field and it was an embarrassment. It made sense that Nebraska had to make changes. It made sense that John Butler wasn't going to be the right fit going forward because Matt Rhule is now in desperation mode. You talk about hot seat, and obviously Matt Rhule, after signing an extension at Nebraska, is not on the hot seat. Matt Rhule getting to 7 wins when the win total was expected to be 7 before the season started. I think Vegas said 7.5 at like minus, it was 130, something like that, whatever it was, doesn't matter. The expectation was 7, maybe 8 wins, but leaning towards 7. Nebraska achieved just enough to keep his name off the hot seat. And now he knows, if I want to make strides, if I want to do something special with a 5-star quarterback like Dylan Rhule, who we, for now, are going to expect is going to be back, if I want to max out the potential of my year 4 team and make a real jump, because this year wasn't really a jump. This year, I don't want to call it regression, but the way it played out, it feels a little bit like regression. They didn't make the strides that we thought they would, and because of that, they're at best neutral to what they were last season. The special teams carried them. The offense was extremely underwhelming, especially given the fact they did so much work in the offseason to make sure they were prepared to be successful. And the defense took a step back as well. So anyway, Matt Rhule's in a situation where he has to make changes. And so Butler having to go might not even be all on Butler. Like, you know, Butler had some challenges and some shortcomings given his roster, given the position he was thrown into, but Matt Rhule's in a desperate spot. So what else will he do? Will he make a change at some position coaches? Is he going to make a change at offensive coordinator? I would guess not. If he was going to make a change at both coordinators, he would have done it. I don't think he wants to make changes at both coordinator spots. I think one is hopefully enough. And then position coaches are going to have to be swapped out most likely. The transfer portal is going to tell us a lot in terms of what they're returning next year and then what they need to go and build with. And you're hoping that if he goes and gets a coach that he either comes from college or he has enough recruiting ability to attract some of these big name guys in the portal, because Nebraska is going to live and die from the portal, as we all know. The recruiting class has less than 10 players in it for 2026. By the way, I'm a full supporter of that. You'll see trolls in the chat on some of my other videos that say, oh, Nebraska's recruiting. That, no, you don't understand. The game plan for this offseason was to sign a small recruiting class to leave room to go to the transfer portal and max it out. So hopefully they get a defensive coordinator who can do that. And I think the biggest question is, who's Matt Rhule going to target? Go back to what I said in the beginning. Matt Rhule knows that his skill set is not next to no coach. It is to be the program builder, the motivator, the guy who can help recruit. But who is the coach who's going to come in and develop, who's going to build out a scheme that works in the Big Ten, that can help Nebraska to be more successful? And I think then you've got to go and say, well, Nebraska needs a big name. Nebraska can't keep fucking around with question mark guys. No disrespect to John Butler. He was a defensive coordinator back in 2012. He came to Nebraska off multiple years as a defensive backs coach in the NFL. He wasn't a proven successful DC in the Big Ten of note recently, right? So they've got to go and make a hire that makes sense. You look at some of the names that Nebraska could potentially target. One that I know a lot of people bring up is Jim Leonhard. I don't think this is realistic. He's in the NFL now. He's not a coordinator. Well, he is. He's a pass game coordinator. But I don't think he's coming back to college from the NFL. Another one that I think will pop up is Mark Stoops. He got fired from Kentucky. Obviously would be a fantastic addition at Nebraska. Kentucky consistently fields really good defenses, and they've had some NFL draft picks, defensive ends, linebackers, defensive backs. I mean, they've had draft picks all over the board. Kentucky would be or Mark Stoops from Kentucky would be a fantastic fit. This is the type of coach he has to go for. Justin Wilcox from Cal, just let go. Historically good defensive coordinator. Was at Boise, Tennessee, Washington, USC, Wisconsin. Obviously didn't have the most success at Cal, but it's freaking Cal, right? I think there are a lot of opportunities for Nebraska to go out and make a splash. It's going to cost money. Matt Rhule knows he's got to do it. Who can they attract? Who will take the job? That's been another question in the live streams. We've been saying, well, I don't want Matt Rhule. I don't think Matt Rhule's the right fit. You hear all this shit that people have to say, right? Well, that's fine, but who could Nebraska attract? Who realistically can they afford to get who would come to Nebraska over some of these other schools? And that's the question you have to ask with DC too. Like Jim Knowles, he's going to be a free agent, you would think, since he's done with Penn State. I'm guessing he's not going to follow James Franklin to Virginia Tech. He could, but if he's on the market, could you attract a guy like Jim Knowles? Extremely successful over the past few seasons. Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Penn State. Joe Rossi, the defensive coordinator for Michigan State. Extensive history in the Big Ten. You got this guy, Vince Carez from Toledo. They had one of the top defenses in college football. I was looking at this. Toledo had, where is it? The number 2 defense in college football. This dude came from Mount Union, where he was the DC, then the head coach. This is his head coaching record at Mount Union. Hops over to Toledo, has been there for the last 5 seasons, and they're one of the best defenses in the country. So what level coach can Nebraska attract? Because, yes, I know we see Nebraska having a good, you guys agree with me on this, by the way. We see Nebraska, like I see comments where other schools and other fans are like, oh, Nebraska already has a top 25 defense. Why are they firing their coach? No. They have a top 25 defense because they played a really weak schedule. They have inflated stats from playing their first couple games against Houston Christian and Akron. And the defense just isn't tough. It's not physical. They don't tackle that well. They need to look more Big Ten balanced. And until you get a coach in that can bring that mentality, Nebraska's going to continue to struggle on that side of the ball. They had 2 years under Tony White that were really successful, but they got to go out and get the right players. They got to get the right coach. And we're hoping Matt Rhule can do it. He knows his weaknesses. Just like Lincoln Riley knows his. And so both these coaches are doing whatever they can to make the right hires. I hope he makes the right one. He made a good move with Dana Holgorsen. He made a great move with Mike Eckler. Can he make a really good move with DC? Just like he did the first time with Tony White. When he brought Tony White in, it was a freaking home run. San Diego State, Arizona State, Syracuse, successful at all 3 stops. Came from a good coaching tree. Tony White was awesome. Can he go out and get another guy like that? The answer is he can. Who is he going to choose? Nebraska will have options. So those are some of the names off the top of my head that I looked at today, and I was like, man, if Nebraska could land a guy with proven success of recent, that would make a lot of fans happy. It would give you a better opportunity in the portal. The other Dave says Wilcox would be his top choice. He'd be pretty solid. You guys are calling him Jim Wilcox. You guys are funny. Max, thanks for being a member for a month. He says, if Rhule promotes Snow to DC, I'll actually flip. It's not happening. Matt Rhule is in desperation mode. Matt Rhule knows that the pressure is on. Fans are fed up. And you cannot have a season like this where the expectations were sky high and you failed to meet the minimum. The minimum expectation was to get to 8 wins. They failed. They did not get there. Now, I know TJ Lateef came in. It's hard to win when you're rocking with a backup, true freshman quarterback. I get that. But they still had winnable moments. They should have beaten Minnesota. They should have beaten USC or Michigan, even with the injury during the USC game. They should have won one of those games. And they shouldn't have gotten run off the field by Penn State and USC. That was just a joke. So Matt Rhule's in a desperate situation. He's going to go and find a good guy. Guaranteed. I hope. I say guaranteed. He's going to find good guys. Who's willing to come? That's the question. Mike says, would Jeff Collins be any good? Where's Jeff Collins right now? It's a good question. Jeff Collins and Matt Rhule are friends. Jeff Collins, former Georgia Tech head coach. What the heck? Jeff Collins. Trying to find his Wikipedia makes it easy. He's a defensive analyst for South Carolina, and he was at North Carolina as their DC last year. I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming that Matt Rhule would probably reach out to him because he does have a history. He was at Florida, Mississippi State. Here's Jeff Collins. Since Georgia Tech, he was the head coach there for 3 years. He's just been at North Carolina, South Carolina. So I'm sure he'll be another one that Matt Rhule calls. That's a relationship that he already has. Lawrence says stagnant may be the word you're looking for, but defense severely regressed. I think that is a perfect word to describe Nebraska this year. They were stagnant. The growth from 2024 to 2025 just wasn't there. And that offseason national championship hype with all of these great players coming in just didn't pan out. It was really unfortunate. Kevin says getting blown out by 3 unranked opponents is definitely regression, bro. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, They got to 7-5, which is 1 win better. They won 1 more game, and they beat Cincinnati to start the season, which I thought was an impressive win, given the fact that Cincinnati did have a pretty decent season. I think Cincinnati finished 7-5, so it wasn't like they were as good as we thought they were when they were ranked in the top 25. But yeah, we'll call it regression, whatever we want to call it. It was rough. Braylene says, could we get Tony White back? He wouldn't come back. Tony White and Matt Rhule were on different pages. That he wouldn't want to come back to Nebraska, and Matt Rhule wouldn't want him. Emmett, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $5 super chat. If Terry doesn't go, I'll have questions about this move. I don't know that he was the issue, right? Because Terry came in and he just inherited the defensive line that he was given. Do you blame him? I mean, what defensive lineman could he have gotten in the portal when he had first gotten here? It was a short month, and he came after the Chiefs playoff run. So yeah, I don't really question that. I'm not really too worried about him as a position coach. I'm not worried about any of the defensive position coaches, actually. I would say the main question is offensive position coaches. Which ones of those are going to get switched up? And specifically offensive line. And they're going to try to go to the portal and get some bigger pieces on the defensive line. That's my guess. So I'm not as worried about that. Jeff says Jim Leonard needs to be his number 1, 2, and 3 choice. It's just a question as to whether or not he would come. I think the one I'd say right now is Jeff Collins that I would lean towards. We know Matt Rhule likes to go back to his previous relationships, guys he's worked with, guys he knows really well. Jeff Collins, obviously, he knows really well. So that would be one that I think he tries to talk to. GBR says stats don't always show the big picture. The reason we never had an average defense was because of Addison Williams as our DB coach. Keep that guy, please. Yeah, I think he's a stud. They're not getting rid of him after 1 year. I can promise you that. Drew says, I've seen people saying SMU's DC since the PJ was at Dallas, but since UCLA is hiring JMU's head coach, we take their DC and players, pull the Signetti route. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if the JMU head coach just goes to UCLA, right? I think a lot of those guys want to keep consistency, and they know if they're going from there to the Big Ten, they could hopefully make a little Signetti turnaround. They all have that belief in their head, I'm sure. So I think that might be a little bit more unrealistic. I don't do the PJ tracker stuff. Who knows what that plane was for? But yeah, I mean, they're going to interview a lot of people for this DC job. That's my guess. So I'm sure they will look into the SMU DC. SMU's been solid these last couple of years. Not great this year. They were good, but not good enough to beat Cal when they when they were 13.5-point favorites the other night. Doug, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Get rid of the O-line coach, give it to Brian Ferentz, and then get a great D coordinator as well. D-line coach got thrown in last minute. I give him one more. I think most people are on the same page, Doug. Give him another year. I don't credit him for the lack of talent that Nebraska was dealing with this season. I don't know about Brian Ferentz. Is Nebraska bringing in a former Iowa coach? That'd be a surprise to me. There are offensive line coaches out there, though. I know that people talk about the Ole Miss coach, Garrison. He'll obviously stay at Ole Miss is my guess. He could follow Lane to LSU. So I'd say that was probably more of a long shot. I think he was announced as Nebraska's offensive line coach when Matt Rhule first came at one point, and then they took it down, if you guys remember that. Remember he stayed in the SEC. Another one that people talk about is Sam Pittman. Could Sam Pittman come and be Nebraska's offensive line coach? It's hard for me to even talk about that because we don't even know if Nebraska is going to make a change at the offensive line coach. We hope they will. We assume and expect they will. Kind of like we expected something to happen on defense. The question is how soon and who would they go after? So good question. Would Rhule let the new DC hire and fire staff to get what they would want to run their defense? I think he would, but I think Nebraska has good staff pieces and they wouldn't want to get rid of them. So that's a good question. But yeah, I think to some degree those coaches have leverage and they can say, well, I'm bringing my linebackers coach, or I need to bring my support staff, or whatever it is. So we'd have to see. DJ says we need proven Big Ten coaching talent, not this BS we've been getting for the past 10 years. That's how a lot of people feel right now. It feels like Nebraska's been taking like friends. Matt Rhule's going back to guys he knows really well. I say that, but then you look at Dana Holgerson and you look at Tony White, and neither of those guys he was super close to. He just went out and got them because he knew they were exceptional coaches and they both panned out. So, it could work out. It could work out with Matt Rhule because he knows how to hire the right guys, Drew, that was the Garrison guy I was talking about. Gabe says, your guys' cornerbacks were good against us. Nebraska didn't have a talent issue at corner. They had a scheme issue on defense, and guys were out of position a lot. Nebraska, if you remember, when they brought the 3-3-5 in, it felt like they were going to be a team that took a lot of shots. They tried to stun a lot, blitz a lot, and they'd be high risk, high reward. And unfortunately, Nebraska took a lot of risks this year. If you watch their games, they would blitz like crazy and then get exploited because the run game would blow them up. They'd have these long runs go against them because Nebraska was out of position multiple times, especially against Iowa. Oh my God, the defense wasn't in spots nearly the entire game, and Iowa was able to pass and run wild all over them. So skill-wise, Nebraska had talented players, but position-wise, they were just out of it most of the time. Braylon says, who do you think Penn State's coach will be? Well, they said Kalani Sitake was interviewing for that job today, or they were at least trying to explore that as an option. So who knows? I mean, Kalani Sitake would be a very strange hire for the Big Ten number one, but Penn State number two. This guy's Mormon. He's a BYU guy through and through. So for him to leave BYU for Penn State, obviously an upgrading job would be awesome, and it'd be really interesting to see how it went. But that's the one they talk about right now. They had Josh Heupel up there the other day. They flew him on a private jet. You guys know Josh Heupel, the coach from Tennessee. But Josh Heupel shot down that he would be going there. So I guess that interview either didn't go well or he just thought that he liked Tennessee better. Who knows? Nova says, what are your thoughts on Latif and Barney's Insta post? Do you think it's anything serious or are we just overplaying it? I tend to think people are overplaying it. Latif isn't leaving Nebraska. It would make absolutely zero sense for him to leave. His value to Nebraska is relatively high right now as a backup QB. So they'll pay him. And where else are you going to go that's going to give you that kind of money, number one? Number two, that would give you the opportunity that you would hope if you were leaving Nebraska. I think you would say he could go down. He could go potentially to like a low tier ACC school, like a Stanford or Cal or something. Cal has a quarterback, but you get my point. Or he could go to the non-power four, the group of four schools. I just don't think he's going to do that. I think he believes in himself enough to ride it out in the Big Ten. And this is the best opportunity for him to be a backup next year and actually get paid. So I think he'll probably stay. The Barney Insta post, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if like Barney left. I'm not tying Barney's Insta post to whether or not I believe he's going to leave. I think a lot of players, it's not just Nebraska players. I'm not targeting anyone specific. A lot of football players, a lot of athletes, young guys in general get emotional on Instagram and they post these things and then they'll post and delete. Those guys posted and deleted. And I didn't see the post. I heard about it. Like someone said, oh, they posted it. It said like moving on or something, like a song. So I just tend to believe they know how to use social media. They know how to get reactions. They know how to get attention. And it makes them feel better when they get a bunch of reactions to their DMs that say, bro, please don't leave. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. We love you. You're so great. You know, a lot of guys need that to feed their ego. So again, this isn't like targeting these players or anybody at Nebraska. It's just young guys in general do that shit. So I have a lot of friends who did it when I was younger. It's really, to me, corny as hell. It's just an attention grab. So I think that's probably more what it is than them actually flirting with the idea of leaving. But they could be. I mean, there are going to be a lot of guys who leave Nebraska this year, in my opinion. You have to think about Nebraska's situation. This offseason, no, go back even further. Matt Rhule came to Nebraska, and the vision was a 3-year rebuild. They got to year 3, and they were stagnant. They did not improve from year 2. You can say they improved by 1 game, but it didn't feel like an improvement. The morale was down. The energy was low in certain games. Even in games they were supposed to win, they couldn't get it done. Obviously, there were injuries and there were some other outstanding issues, but it just felt really dark at Lincoln, or in Lincoln at times this season. It felt really dark in Lincoln from Scottsdale this season. I can tell you, going and watching the games at bars, people just felt shitty. They beat really weak teams all year, and they didn't win against teams they had to, like USC, Minnesota, Iowa, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of transfers is my point. I think we're going to see a lot of guys who are like, you know what, screw it. I bought in for this rebuild. The rebuild didn't happen the way I wanted it to. I'm going to have other opportunities at other schools. Let's see what the transfer portal's talking about. I could very well see Nebraska losing 3 starting caliber guys and depth pieces. So I know, like, for example, Willis McGahee, he's probably going to leave. He didn't play at Nebraska this year, but he did play last season. He was really good, and we thought he'd be a developmental guy who would come on the scene, potentially start this year. Didn't work out, so he'll go somewhere else. But yeah, it's TBD on who's actually going to leave. So I'm not really making any predictions or guesses for who's going to be gone. It's hard to know. The other Dave, thanks for being a member. He says, would promoting Phil, I lost the comment. Would promoting Phil Snow be underwhelming? He's historically a good to great DC. Yeah, it'd be more than underwhelming. It'd be disgusting. It'd be offensive. Phil Snow was on the staff this year. He was part of the defensive staff. He could have made things work better in theory because he was there. He was in the room. So what's it going to do if you bring him in now full time and you removed another coach? Is it that the other coach was terrible and that other coach needs to be taken out because he was toxic? I don't believe that to be true. If it was the case, then you could make an argument that, oh, then Phil Snow could come in and clean things up because he doesn't have this dead weight carrying on, right? I don't think that's what happened. I don't think that Phil Snow is the defensive coordinator Nebraska needs right now. He's an older dude, more of a consultant, more of an analyst role. I think the DC was John Butler. Go and get a new DC who's got fresh ideas, who's ready to win in the Big Ten right now, who's been successful recently, and let's get it rocking. Not only that, but they have either ties to other players or they're going to be an attractive figure for guys from the transfer portal. Phil Snow is not hot. No one knows who Phil Snow is. No disrespect, but players don't know who Phil Snow is. They're not going to come to Nebraska like defensive linemen. Let's say there's a guy from Alabama who was a rotator this year and Nebraska wants to get him. It's going to cost $1 million. And he's like, okay, I can go there or I can go to Oregon. Oregon's got Tosh Lapoy. Maybe he goes to Cal. Oregon, if they have to replace Lapoy, they're going to go and get another superstar DC like Jim Knowles or something, right? Is he going to go and play for a coach like that? Or is he going to come to Nebraska, same amount of money, and say, oh, well, I'm going to go play for Phil Snow, who I've never heard of? You know the answer. They have to go out and get a big name. That's why I'm so confident Matt Rhule will. He knows that the power and leverage is going to be in who his coaching staff is. So who are the coaches on this staff who are going to attract the players you need to win now? Because next year is a win now. The urgency is at an all-time high. Matt Rhule feels the fucking pressure, I promise you. Listen to the way he talks in the press conferences. His heart's going a little bit faster. He knows the pressure's on. He needs to win. The team underperformed, and he knows a lot of that has to do with the coaching staff he hired. He fucked up. That's fine. He just has to go out, make some changes, and start to make improvements. Matt Rhule's an expert at it. We've watched him do it many times before. So I'm looking forward to what he does. I'm excited. I'm nervous because I'm just wondering what the competition is going to be out there. And then when Nebraska wants to go and get their guy, how many other schools are going to try to get him? Same when it comes down to the transfer portal. But I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll put it that way. Nebraska is going to spend. Nebraska is going to do whatever it takes. They need to get guys who can win now, guys who are proven. DJ, thank you for the $5 super chat. We need proven Big Ten coaching talent, not this BS we've been getting the past 10 years. We need someone who knows how the Big Ten works. Thank you, DJ. Double down on exactly what I just said. I wouldn't even go so far to say it has to be a Big Ten guy, but it has to be a guy with power conference experience and a guy who's been successful recently. I really, I think you need like a Justin Wilcox, for example, or a Mark Stoops. Those two have been running solid defenses over the past few seasons, and they've been in power conferences against top tier coaches. So they know what it looks like to win big games, and they'd be able to make it work in the Big Ten, is my point. JR says, if Dylan stays, would we get rid of Donovan? I don't know the dynamic, and I don't know if they're keeping Donovan because of Dylan. I don't know if Dylan would leave if they got rid of Donovan. I don't know if there's any like family dynamic there that makes that situation awkward. I do believe if Dylan left, Donovan would probably be gone. I have a feeling. However, if Dylan waited till the final hour to leave, Matt Rhule might already be stuck with Donovan and not make a move. So if Dylan was to hit the transfer portal in the next 2 weeks, next 10 days, maybe then we see Donovan movement. But if he doesn't leave until, after the bowl game, then I don't see Donovan movement. I mean, I couldn't even predict it. I don't think anyone can. No one really knows what Rhule's feel is on this, and no one knows what the family dynamic is. The family dynamic, I think, is the biggest piece to the puzzle. If this is going to be your starting quarterback, does he want his offensive line coach to be his uncle? I am on record saying, I screamed it in the live stream before, that I asked if Donovan really loves his nephew, because the way his nephew's getting abused doesn't make any sense. At some point, you just say, you know what, I resign. I don't want to be the responsible one for getting this dude's leg broken, right? So, I don't know, man. It's interesting. Jackal says, call me crazy, but I'm so down to promote Ekeler to DC. Eckler's doing a great job as special teams coordinator. Keep his ass in the position that he's successful at. Let's continue to improve on the special teams. Let's find a defensive coordinator who's solid. You don't want to lose your special teams coordinator and have to go replace him. Even if you just moved him around. Ekeler can't do everything. High Mountain Guy says, imagine Husker Nation trashing Brian Ferentz for I can't even remember how many years and being like, cool, let's have that, dude. Well, to be fair, they're trashing him as the OC. They're trashing him as a play caller, not as an offensive line coach. To be fair. Corey, thanks for the $10 super chat. Long time no talk, friend. Not much difference than where we were with the Frost era. We are winning a few more close games. Why not Ed Orgeron or the DC from Auburn that was let go? DC from Auburn, I don't know what's going to happen to him. Who is that, DJ Durkin? Yeah, another name. Like, that's another Mark Stoops type of guy, right? Like, proven success, recent winner. He's been successful at multiple schools recently. Michigan, DC. Maryland, head coach. Ole Miss, co-DC. A&M, DC. Auburn, DC. Auburn had interim head coach over these last 6 games. A lot of experience. So, yeah, DJ Durkin would be fantastic. I'd throw the name in the hat. Can Nebraska get him is the question. Or will he end up at a bigger school like in the SEC? Is another school going to poach him like at Oregon? Like, who knows? I do agree with you, though. I don't know about Ed Orgeron. Like, Ed Orgeron's a fun topic. Ed Orgeron's a fun name. But Ed Orgeron's been out of the coaching game for a minute. Ed Orgeron's success was a lot to do with the staff he had around him and the players he had around him. Was Ed Orgeron a fantastic X&O guy? I'm not sure that he ever was. He was in his past, but anything recent, I'm not too sure. So Ed Orgeron would probably be a question mark to me. I'd prefer something a little bit new or a little bit more proven recently. Asking me about the Rob Arich guy is the San Diego State head coach. I did look at him. Hang on. I looked at him. He's the San Diego State DC. San Diego State has a top-ranked defense too. San Diego State's like a top 10 defense. Let's see. He's in there for a couple of years. Again, do they want a guy coming from non-Power 5? Probably not. Like, this is a group of 4 coach. So I guess they don't want to go group of 4. I'm trying to see where he was before. I think that they said he was at like Idaho or something. Okay, here we go. Okay, he was at Idaho as the DC 2022 to 23. Then South Dakota as the special teams coordinator. San Diego State as the defensive edge rusher coach, and then DC 1 season. So again, he's a little bit new, right? Like, he's coming from group of 4. Not as proven. I would guess Matt Rhule wants to go more proven than Rob Arich. I don't even know how you say his name, but I would guess more proven. Janky says, just join, but would love to see Jim Leonard. I'm sure it's not possible, but could dream. It's possible. I don't want to say it's not possible. Like anything's possible with the right amount of money and with the right opportunity, the right promises. I don't think it's that likely. I think he'll stay in the NFL. I just think there are a lot of other coaches who Nebraska could probably get, and Matt Rhule might not waste his time trying to persuade Jim Leonard when Jim Leonard probably wants to be in the NFL. And Nebraska had a chance to go after Jim Leonard in the past, I think, and they didn't do it, right? So not too sure. Nebraska and Kansas says definitely need a DC that can stop the run. As Carricker said, defense this year just seemed to mentally check out the last 2 games. Too many missed assignments, no gap integrity or edge protection. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think any DC that Nebraska hires is going to be able to stop the run. All these ones that we've talked about can. A lot of it has to do with personnel. I even think that Tony White was great at stopping the run, right? If he was going to be at Nebraska this year, he probably wouldn't have been as good because Nebraska wasn't going to stop the run. Was that a Tony White issue or was that a personnel issue? I'd argue it was a personnel issue. So I'm confident that any of these DCs that come in are going to be able to stop the run. That's why they're going to be hired, right? They have proven success, and yeah, I'm optimistic for it. So you don't need to just look for that specifically. Will says, do you think Dylan is leaving? Honestly, I'm 50-50. I have no idea. Couldn't tell you. I wouldn't be surprised if he left at all. Like if it popped up on Twitter and it said Dylan Rhule has hit the transfer portal, I wouldn't be surprised at all. If he stayed at Nebraska and wanted to be the starting quarterback again and continue on with what he started, wouldn't be surprised at all. Total toss up. If he left, would I be upset? I'd be nervous because Nebraska's invested so much into this team that he's going to take some players with him. Not that he's going to go to a school, like say he goes to Oregon, and then he's going to tell Ja'Cory Barney to come with him. More so if he leaves, a lot of these players who came to Nebraska came because of Dylan. So how many of those guys leave as well? Like, does Isaiah Hunter stay? I don't know the answer to that. So it would be interesting. I'm hoping not. A lot of question marks if Dylan was to leave. The other question is, who do they get at quarterback? Who's the dual threat quarterback they can go out and get? Mentioned dual threat there specifically because I do believe if Nebraska went and got a new quarterback, they need to focus on a guy who can run, who can escape the pocket, who isn't going to stand there like a statue, who can be more of a playmaker. Dylan is not a playmaker. Dylan is a distributor. He gets the ball out to playmakers. That was not effective this season, unfortunately. It was effective at times. It worked with Emmett Johnson. However, most of those were handoffs. It worked with Isaiah Hunter. A lot of those were underneath screens. Nebraska needs a guy who can make plays. And I just think, like John Mateer at the beginning of the season, the first 4 games where he got hurt, that guy's a playmaker. Dual threat, right? Can Nebraska go and get a guy like that? Obviously, John Mateer is a dream quarterback since he's Heisman caliber, but you get my point. Colin says, what tier would place Nebraska's NIL? Are we in the running with the Ohio State's, Texas A&M when it comes to NIL? I don't think overall, no. I think Nebraska's probably a tier below those. So Ohio State, Texas, and Texas A&M have unlimited pockets. Texas Tech, unlimited pockets. USC, I'd argue, unlimited pockets. Nebraska's probably one tier after Oregon, unlimited. Nebraska's in the same category as an Auburn. They're in the same category as Penn State. They're probably in the same category as like maybe even an Oklahoma, but they're not in tier 1. Tier 1 is print money, unlimited. They're the biggest schools. They're the ones who've been proving it. Nebraska needs to prove it before they get, a bunch of other donors to open up their checkbooks, I think. So people are really waiting for is Nebraska to prove something, and 7-5 is not proving shit. Drew says, if Dylan leaves, is that a sign that the players are checked out on Rhule? A little bit, but a lot of players left last year as well, right? Jamari Butler left. Mekhi Bayer left. James Williams left. Borkacher left. What's left in the portal? Prince Will Umamielen left. So there were a lot of guys who left, and I'm not sure that was checked out on Rhule. I think that Nebraska is just not the top tier program that some of these guys want to play at, and they want to get paid more money, and they could use their leverage with having decent seasons at Nebraska and then going to a bigger school and getting more money. So I don't know that it's checked out. It really depends on who leaves, like if Dylan left, and then if Isaiah Hunter left, and then Ja'Cory Barney left, then you could start asking questions. If you had freshmen leave, guys who are young, who Matt Rhule's recruited himself, then you could start to ask the questions. If it's guys who Matt Rhule didn't recruit, or guys who came in through the portal, I think that'd be different because the portal's more transactional. I think it's really it's an objective deal, and it's kind of a question that we'd have to see case by case. Josh says, why is no one talking about offensive line coach Rhule? He needs to leave as well. Everyone is, to be honest with you, brother. I don't know a Nebraska fan who wants to keep Donovan Rhule. I don't know any. I haven't seen it in the chat. No one who's talked to me that I'm friends with has said we should keep him. I think everyone's talking about him leaving, and the question is, why has he not been fired? It's been a question for multiple years now, and that's where it goes back to the dynamic. Is it a Rhule family dynamic? Is there something that's like tying him to Dylan? We don't know. We'll have to see. David says, like, David, I love you. I have no, I'm not being mean when I say this. What? Nebraska should go after Matt Patricia? Brother. Matt Patricia is one of the best defensive coordinators in football, period. Matt Patricia is at Ohio State. Matt Patricia is going to be coaching for a national championship this season. Why would he leave Ohio State for Nebraska? Why would he leave Ohio State for anywhere, right? So that's just a random ass comment, and I hope you don't believe that Nebraska would actually have a chance to get Matt Patricia. Negative 5,000% chance. Hopeful Husker says Bo Pelini for DC. I think Bo Pelini wants to stay as far away from Nebraska as he possibly can. That's just my feel on it. Jim, thank you for being here. Thank you for the 11-11. D'Anton Lynn and Tony White, great DCs. I respectfully disagree. Look at their D stats this year with both having better players across the board. Not great. Okay. I don't think D'Anton Lynn's a great DC. I don't know who said that. Tony White was a great DC at Nebraska. He was solid. I don't know that this year at Florida State was all on him, if it was on the culture, if it was on the personnel. That was a terrible school for him to go to, like really bad move. He left Nebraska knowing full well Nebraska was going to be in rebuild mode, but then he went to a school who's in an even worse spot. So yeah, I don't know what Tony White was thinking. He still does have a great track record, and he's been successful at every stop minus Florida State. D'Anton Lynn, he's whatever to me. I think he's an average DC in the Big Ten. He's young. He's 35. He's still getting it figured out. You know, he came from UCLA, then went to SC. It's a new Big Ten experience for him. So he's whatever to me. But I do believe Tony White will get it figured out. David says, saying Nebraska's offensive line is terrible is in fact a disingenuous comment. I think the better word is inconsistent. And I think they're average. I don't think they're terrible. I think they're average and they're inconsistent. And when they play inconsistently, they don't look good. I think that's the fair assessment of the offensive line. Chuck says, let's hear who you would let go and hire to fill those positions. I mean, right now, the only one that I for sure would say Nebraska needs to let go of and try to hire is offensive line coach Rhule, and swap him out with like a Sam Pittman. I don't know what other offensive line coach options Nebraska would have, but I know Sam Pittman would be a really hot one. It'd get people excited. It'd be good for the portal. I think Nebraska's in a position where they need to hire big flashy names. So if you can get former coaches, Power 4 coaches from the SEC, from the ACC, the Big 12, whatever, go and get those guys, and that starts to set Nebraska off in the portal. That would be huge. So that's what I think Nebraska's got to do. And I don't know if Matt Rhule's going to do it or not. Outside of that, I like all their other coaches. They just hired the defensive line coach last year. They just hired their defensive backs coach last year. The linebackers coach has been here for a while. The receivers coach just came in last year. I mean, the tight ends look good this season, so I'm not blaming Sat. Maybe you say get a quarterbacks coach. If you fire your quarterbacks coach, you go and get somebody else. I don't know what quarterbacks coach you would get, but you already have Dana Holgorsen in there, who's a little bit of a QB whisperer. So, and I do want to give Dana more time. I think Dana's been, serviceable. The offense hasn't been great, but I do think that they need to change up their scheme and they need to let him do what he wants. I think he's on a leash a little bit is my guess. And if that's true, I'd like to see what Dana can do if he has full control of the offense and he's allowed to run the game how he wants to run it, So I'm still waiting on the Dana Holgorsen situation. I don't think there's that many coaches who need to go. I think DC was a fantastic move. Get him the hell out. Let's get somebody else in. Start recruiting. This is a funny comment, David, because I don't agree with this. Emmett Johnson ran for over 1,400 yards this year, and he did that because of our offensive line, and they can run block. Emmett Johnson carried the team. Emmett Johnson did it on his own. Outside of blocking on the outside from some receivers and some decent offensive line run blocking at times, Emmett Johnson made plays because he's a freak athlete. He had a really impressive juke move. He was able to get out of the way. When he was in a hole with multiple guys on his ass, he was able to get out of the way. When guys would break through the line and he was dead to rights, 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he'd find a way to cut and get upfield for 15 yards. Emmett Johnson did it himself. Don't know what else to tell you. The offensive line was extremely inconsistent. They were decent at times, but they were never good. That's the bottom line. Husker fan says Rhule has the same record as Mike Riley. Mike Riley inherited a much better team than Matt Rhule did. Mike Riley inherited a Bo Pelini team who was off 9 and 10 win seasons for the last 6 years. And then he came in and was able to do what he wanted. He ended up tanking that program. Scott Frost came in, tried to build it back up, didn't. So they had this, this climb with Bo, this fall off with Riley and with Frost. And then Matt Rhule is now trying to build it back up. They're on a slight incline. If you look at the graph, like the Apple emoji graph, you can see how it's going slightly up. That's what he's on right now. It's slight, it's subtle, but it's working. Let's see. Mark says, my top 5 choices would be Jim Leonard, Brent Pry, Mark Stoops, Justin Wilcox, DJ Durkin. If Nebraska gets any of those guys, it'd be awesome. I mean, I don't know what Brent Pry did at Virginia Tech. I don't know how good their defense was. Obviously, he has a defensive coordinator background. There's a lot of good options, and I think that's the bottom line. Nebraska's going to have good choices, guys who have proven success from other schools in the Power 4, and I'm looking forward to what he does. They're gonna interview guys over the next couple of weeks, is my guess. Again, Steven, this goes back to what I just said. Mike Riley inherited a much better team than Matt Rhule did. No, Matt Rhule wasn't beating top 25 teams, but he also didn't inherit a team who was coming off multiple 9 and 10 win seasons. Bo Pelini was a special coach. He was not electric. He was a James Franklin, right? He was a poor man's James Franklin. He was also at Nebraska and not at Penn State. But my point is, he wasn't a champion coach, but he was good enough to have Nebraska competitive and able to win any game they played in. They almost beat Texas. Texas, who went on to lose the national championship to Alabama. So, yeah, Bo Pelini was a good coach. The other Dave says, would Ryan Walters leave UW for NU? I don't think so. I think UW's got a really good program. They've got a good head coach. They're on a similar trajectory as Nebraska, and I think they can recruit really good talent out there. So I would guess Ryan Walters was going to stay at Washington. I think Jed Fish is a solid coach. He's not going to lose his coach to Nebraska. That's my guess. Nova says, you think there's a chance at playing Jeff Sims in the bowl game against Arizona State? I think there's a chance, but talking about the bowl stuff, it's really sounding like if Nebraska plays in the Las Vegas Bowl, it's going to be against Utah, which is going to be, how do I put this? Rough. Nebraska is going to get absolutely obliterated. I mean, as we know, Utah is one of the best teams in the country. Utah's a win away from the playoff. They almost made it in. They're not going to make the playoff, obviously, but they were freaking close. The bowl projections right now have Nebraska going to the Las Vegas Bowl. What's this one say? This is ESPN. The Music City Bowl against Missouri or LSU. And I saw one more. I think it was just those two, actually, but there are a bunch of predictions. If you guys remember my tweet, let's see. Home. This was my bowl projection. I said they were going, if they got to 7-5, it was one of these 3 bowl games. Well, right now, it's almost certainly the Music City Bowl or the Las Vegas Bowl, which we had talked about. Your options are Missouri or LSU. I tweeted this almost a month ago, and I was still spot on with these predictions. It's hilarious. Okay, it's either Missouri or LSU. We know that to be true. Now, will Nebraska play in the Music City Bowl? Will Iowa play in the Music City Bowl? Or will Illinois play in the Music City Bowl? Those are the 3 teams that are going to go to these 3 games. The Las Vegas Bowl, these are the options on who you could play. Arizona, Arizona State, or Utah. Since Arizona beat Arizona State, it's probably Arizona now. So I'd say it's either Arizona or Utah, but most likely Utah because all of the bowl projections say Utah. So yeah, Nebraska, Utah seems really likely, or Nebraska versus Missouri, or versus LSU in the Music City Bowl. I lean Las Vegas Bowl. I think it's going to happen. I want to manifest it to happen because I'm going to be there. I really want to see them play in that game. But the Las Vegas Bowl is likely either Nebraska or Illinois playing against Utah. And right now it seems like it's going to be Utah. Las Vegas Bowl picks first. And the Las Vegas Bowl obviously wants Nebraska over Illinois. And any bowl game wants Nebraska fans. So if Las Vegas Bowl picks first, that's probably where they're going to end up. Those are the bowl thoughts. Let's see. Mike says, Connor, thoughts on Pat Fitzgerald going to Michigan State? You know, I actually saw ESPN did like a ranking, a grading of coaches, and I thought it was such bullshit. So Pat Fitzgerald goes to Michigan State. They put his ranking in here. They said a B, or his grade, sorry, a B. Pat Fitzgerald, who was extremely successful. Hang on. Extremely successful at Northwestern, a school who's, you know, not meant to be good. Where's his record? Okay. Fall off at the end. But look at the consistency here from 2012 to 2020. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of his 8 seasons, they were basically on pace to win 9 games. It's pretty freaking good. They only didn't win 9 in 2020 because of COVID. But they still made the Big Ten championship game that year that they lost. Anyway, the point is, Fitz is a great coach. I think if Nebraska fans lost Matt Rhule, I think he would be a top choice for Nebraska, if I'm being real with you. I think Nebraska fans would love him. I think he got fired wrongfully from Northwestern. He did get super rich from it. I'm sure he's worth over $50 million because of that now, maybe $70 million. He got a huge settlement. So Fitz isn't coaching for money. Fitz is coaching for fun. Michigan State already is a good program. They have history. They had D'Antonio humming. They got to the playoff in the very beginning. They were always ranked in the top 25. Nebraska had a little rivalry with them, and they were a tough team to beat. Fitz gets in there. That's a better school, better program than Northwestern. He will make them into a monster. I think Fitz was a A+ hire for them. A+. Let me see. Drew says, Connor, would you say is the top tier home run hire Jim Knowles or Jim Leonard? I mean, any of those coaches I talked about a few minutes ago. Jim Knowles is a A+. Justin Wilcox, A+. Mark Stoops, A+. DJ Durkin, A+. A coach who's been successful recently, who can bring guys in through the portal because of his name, because people are going to market this once he gets hired, right? That's the coach who's an A+ hire. Fat Sauce, thank you for the $5 super chat. DC needs to be a coach that will bring transfers with him. Sue for D-line coach and get rid of Sat and Foley, Buns coaches. So I don't even know what Foley's job is. I'm going to be real with you. Don't know what Foley's job is. Sat's the tight ends coach. Tight ends were good. Luke Lindenmeyer's been developed. Not sure what's going on with the other tight ends, but he's been a stud. Sue for D-line coach would be fantastic. Is it realistic? I have no idea. But retweet on the bring in a DC who can attract portal guys. 1,000%. Good man, Brad. Thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Plenty of coordinators available. I want a good recruiter plus a guy with experience. Yeah, and I think that's what Matt Rhule's going for. There are all these questions like, will Matt Rhule just hire his friends? Will Matt Rhule make the right call because, he hired and promoted John Butler, who obviously wasn't the right fit. I think desperate times call for desperate measures, and Rhule knows he's got to make a serious change. So this is the time to go and hire a guy with proven success. He did it with Dana Holgorsen. Dana was not his homie. Dana was not a guy who worked for him or a guy who he'd worked with before. Dana was just the best name available who he thought could come in there and remake the offense. Obviously, that hasn't worked out yet, but he tried to take a shot, and I think he's going to do the exact same thing on defense this year. That's my guess. Lucas, thank you for the $5 super chat. Late to the stream. Any other dominoes you see falling? I believe in Matt Rhule finding a great DC. I mean, I have no idea. It depends on Penn State. Who are they going to hire as their head coach? If Penn State goes out and gets a big name, does that open up another job? I don't know. And then once that happens, what guys are available? And once you see who's all available, Matt Rhule can say, okay, what other position coaches could I get rid of? And then who's on the market that I can replace with? I think a really tough thing would be to say, we're going to start getting rid of position coaches who've only been here for one season. And there are a lot of guys who've only been here for one season. So I just don't see that many quote unquote dominoes falling for Nebraska, but anything could happen once you see these other coaching jobs open up and Matt Rhule starts to see who's available. I don't know. I think the main one right now that happened could be the last main one. And the only other major could be the offensive line coach. I think the last real key piece that we're waiting on is the offensive line coach. Does Nebraska keep him or do they get rid of him? What are the politics behind that? Don't know. Corey says, do you think the 3-3-5 was part of the issue? Probably not. There are a lot of teams who are successful with the 3-3-5. TCU's obviously been successful with the 3-3-5. Iowa State's been successful with the 3-3-5. There are tons. I mean, tons. Teams in the top 15. Teams are running the 3-3-5 who are in the playoffs. So I wouldn't call it the 3-3-5. I'd say it's the personnel and guys who are in position that made it tough. Nebraska also wasn't running just the 3-3-5. They had 4 down fronts all the time. They had 5 down fronts a bunch of the time. So it wasn't the 3-3-5. It was personnel. Drew says, am I the only one that thinks Glenn Thomas might be the problem? Seems like Dylan hasn't progressed or developed much other than, I don't know how much of it's Glenn Thomas and how much of it's Dana. I don't know how much is Rhule, how much is it his own quarterback coach, So again, I don't know the dynamics. I don't know who's in charge and who's running the show. Thomas could just be a glorified assistant at this point when you've got a private coach for Rhule and you've got Dana Holgorsen in, who's the main quarterback's coach, is what I'd assume. I don't know the dynamics though. So great freaking question. Jake says, if it isn't NIL, what do we use to attract stellar players? Facilities and big name coaches. That's it. Big name coaches will get big name players because they want to come and play for the best guys. They want to go and play for guys who can get them to the NFL. That's number one. The number two is the facilities and the student life experience at Nebraska. Going to Nebraska is a big deal. The problem is the competition there is crazy. You've got Oregon, you've got A&M, you've got USC. Like there are all these other schools who have great opportunities for players to fit into. They're not competing with Iowa State and Arkansas or Kentucky. They're competing with the biggest schools in the country. So the main thing is coaches, and then Nebraska's got to win games to get the best players. They've got to have hope, and they've got to have reason to believe that they're going to be playing in front of huge crowds on big stages, and not only playing in those games, but winning them. And Nebraska hasn't won them in so long that gives people, I think, a little bit more hesitance. So it's really NIL and coaches. Spend the friggin' money. Spoiler says, I know somebody mentioned this. Is Penn State actually prioritizing Sataki? I assume based on the reports, right? They prioritized getting Heupel up there. He went, he said no. Who's their next one? Kalani Sataki. Like, could he actually go? Would he actually go? I don't know. Are they prioritizing him? I'm sure. They're in a desperate spot. Penn State's job's been open since beginning of October, and all of these other schools have filled their jobs. Arkansas is filled. Ole Miss is filled. LSU is filled. Florida is filled. UCLA is now filled with a JMU coach. Oklahoma State is filled. The point is all these guys have filled their jobs. Penn State fired their coach first. So yeah, they need to prioritize. They need to figure it out ASAP because signing day's coming, portal's coming. They got to get it going. Big Kahuna says we should get Kawan Lacey from Ole Miss. He was committed to Nebraska for a while as a high schooler. So Nebraska's not getting players like that, right? Kewan Lacey, number one, is either going to stay at Ole Miss because he likes his current coaches, or he's going to LSU with Lane Kiffin. That's it. Kewan Lacey's playing at one of those two schools. And even if he wasn't like a loyal Ole Miss guy or a loyal Lane guy, he's not going to a school like Nebraska. Nebraska can't spend enough to get a player like that right now. Kewan Lacey is one of the top running backs in the country next year. Top 2, maybe number 1. And Nebraska can't get guys like that. Right? Not right now. They have to win. They have to prove they can win. Kewan Lacey's now gotten a taste for it. He's in the playoff. They won 10 games this year, or 11 games this year. They won 11-1. So for Nebraska to get good guys, they're probably going to schools who've been underperforming. Dane Key from Kentucky, Isaiah Hunter from Cal, Williams Nwaneri from Missouri. They're getting guys who are good, but not at top tier places, right? The top tier dudes go to other top tier schools. So it is what it is, but Kewan Lacey is a dream that Nebraska will not be able to achieve, but they aren't going to pursue him. They know they can't get him. 84 Cal says, if you paid Matt Patricia $4 million, he will come to Nebraska. Money talks. Yeah, I mean, in reality, you can say that to a ton of people, right? You can say whatever you want about, fantasy. You can say, oh, well, if Nebraska paid Lane Kiffin $40 million, he would come to Nebraska. Yeah, well, is that realistic? No. Is it realistic that Nebraska's going to pay Matt Patricia $4 million? No, unfortunately. Drew says, if we had Ty and Nash this year, we're praising John Butler. That's probably freaking true. I don't know what I said. It says, that's what I'm talking about, man. Be positive, Connor. You don't need Prozac to be positive, do you? I'm extremely positive. I'm also extremely realistic. I don't come on here and just sell positivity and hope. That's not fun for me. I'm not like one of those fans who's just on Twitter blindly saying Nebraska's great, because it's not true. It's okay to say Nebraska's shitty right now. It just is reality. I'm an eternally positive person though, brother. Like I can't be sad. I haven't cried in 2 or 3 years. Like it's really hard for me to be negative. So I'm being positive. Just yeah, I don't need Prozac. No, I don't even know what Prozac is. I'm assuming it's a drug for depression. Jake says, shouldn't Dana bring his own playbook in instead of using somebody else's? I would think so. I would think, but I don't know what the dynamic is. Again, a lot of this is like questioning what Matt Rhule's game plan is and what he tells Dana he can or can't do. Let's see. Nickel Toe says, climb with Bo. I must have been watching a different Nebraska team during those years. So you misunderstood what I said. When Bo came in, they took Nebraska from struggling under Bill Callahan back up to 9 and 10 wins consistently, winning bowl games. They were not good enough to get it done and like to get to the next level, and that's why he had to be fired. I totally agree with it. And then Mike Riley had him drop off after that. That's what I was saying. There was a subtle climb with Bo. It plateaued. 100% plateaued. I agree with that. He needed to be fired. And then it dipped down with Mike Riley. They tried to get it to climb back up with Frost. It did not. It plateaued on failure. And then Matt Rhule came back up and he tried to make it climb. So, yeah. Braylene says it's unbelievable that Emmett's not a finalist for the Doak Walker. He's a dog. It's tough. There's a lot of really, really good running backs out there. And he's a unique back. I think it's hard for people to watch Emmett and compare him to these other running backs because he's just a unique looking runner. Like the way he runs, the way he makes plays. I think it's hard for like the award people or people who vote on it to take him seriously. The other thing is he's playing on a shitty team. So yes, he should be a finalist, but he's not playing on a team that wins big games. He's playing on a team that beats shitty opponents. And yeah, he did great against good opponents, but that doesn't matter. You got to win. You got to be on the national stage. Kewan Lacey was on the national stage. Ahmad Hardy was on the national stage. Jeremiah Love was on the national stage. Nebraska was an afterthought. It's not Emmett Johnson's fault. Nebraska just sucked. Phil says, Dana's fine. He, like the rest of us, we're in the dark regarding how bad we actually did hit the portal. When given the chances last summer to admit overestimating, Rhule doubled down. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the players and personnel. So I do like Dana still. Just so we're all on the same page. I would not want them or would not support them firing Dana right now. Bond says, I've heard rumors of Keelan Smith and Barney as portal transfers when/if Dylan transfers. Yeah, everything's going to be rumors. No one freaking knows, right? Total question. Phil says, Connor, are we going to Vegas? I have our tickets. Do you need 2 or 4? Phil, how'd you get tickets to the game already? I was going to buy the tickets on the 7th, I think it says they release on the website. How the hell do you get tickets already? As of right now, I think it's just my dad and I going. So I need 2, I think. I don't know. How did you get tickets, Phil? I'm going to message you after my stream, though. Got to ask you how you got tickets. That's interesting. I really hope we go to Vegas, though. I really freaking hope we go to Vegas. It'd be such a good time. I mean, I'm going to be in Vegas anyway. But, yeah. It'd be a really good time to watch Nebraska in that stadium. If you guys haven't been to the Raiders Stadium, it's very cool inside. Like, it just feels like a really good football environment. It's small enough, and it's brand new. It just feels like a really cool place to watch a game. The bar areas are all nice. It's a good stadium. All these new stadiums are fun to be in. They're fun to hang out at for 3 hours, you know? Ray and Taylor say, I'd be upset if it was a 10-2 Utah team going to the Las Vegas Bowl. You know, I wouldn't be upset. I would love to watch Nebraska play against Utah. Utah's going to have some opt-outs. They have multiple guys going to the NFL. So it'd be a really challenging game, obviously. But I'd rather see Nebraska play good competition, even if they're going to lose it. I'd rather see them play good competition than weak teams. I think if Nebraska has time to prepare for a bowl game, they're going to be extremely motivated. They're going to have less bowl opt-outs, pending transfer portal decisions. And it'll be interesting to see what they can do against a good team. So, yeah. Let's see. Jay says, Fitz, what have you done for me lately? Nothing. He'll be gone in 2 to 3 years. I get that. Like, I totally understand you saying he hasn't done anything lately, but he's been so good at building football programs. in the past, if you're giving him more to work with, which they are going to give him more to work with at Michigan State, I'm a little bit more optimistic than that. Just being real with you. Phil says Jim Knowles will be a home run and has a relationship with Rhule, but does he have head coach buyout money? No, he would just get let go with the current staff, and he'd be able to go and do his thing. He'd be a free agent essentially because he's not tied to the program anymore after they hire their new coach, depending on who they hire. If they hired, say, Kalani Sitake, I'm guessing Kalani Sitake's not going to retain him. He's going to go and bring his current DC from BYU. He'd probably bring his entire staff over, or everybody he could, because I'm sure some of those BYU guys are going to get retained and they're going to try and promote from within, but who knows? Enrique says, do they wait to see what Dylan's doing before firing Donovan? I could see that. Yeah. I don't know what the politics are again, but I could definitely see that. Big Ahunia says, of the teams that have coaching changes, which players would you like to poach? Man, the only one I've seen that popped up today that would be awesome, which I don't think Nebraska's going to have a chance to get right now, is Nick Marsh from Michigan State. He's one of their top receivers over the past couple of years. He's over 1,000-yard receiver, like one of the best players in their entire team. He already hit the portal. But there's a ton of guys, like Cam Coleman could be in the portal from Auburn. It's just, who can Nebraska get? Right. And I think they're second fiddle to a lot of these other big schools who are going to hit the portal first. So I don't know yet. I also don't know what Nebraska's roster is looking like. I don't know who they're going to have to replace. Like if Nebraska loses Isaiah Hunter and Ja'Cory Barney, we're going to need to see a lot of receivers. If Nebraska just loses one, do they need to go get a receiver, or do they lose some of their depth? We know they're going to need defensive linemen. We know they're going to need linebackers. We know they're going to need at least one DB. But all these schools that have new coaches, they're going to be trying to fight to keep their rosters as well. So until the portal really starts to light up, it's hard to know who you poach. We know the general position groups, but we got to give it a week or two before we know what players are available. I agree with this. Rhule needs to make the decision to part ways with Donovan, regardless of whether Dylan stays or not. I would argue regardless, because even if they said the only way you keep Dylan is if you keep your offensive line coach, okay, let's just rid ourselves of all the Raiolas. Let's just start over. No O-line coach, no Raiola, new QB, new O-line coach. Screw it. Nebraska needs a facelift. Like, if we're just being real with ourselves, we need a full... Okay, so a guy I used to work for, this is offensive if you're a woman, so I promise you I don't mean this offensively, but it makes sense if you're a man. He would talk about Build-A-Bitch and how he'd take a girl who was just whatever. Like, she could be a 6 or a 5. And he'd give her tits, he'd give her ass, facelift, lips, get her teeth done, new hair, new fit, spend $100K, make her fire, right? Nebraska needs to do that. They need to start over. And Nebraska's a 6 right now. We need to inject everywhere we can inject and make this team fire. So if that means start over, clean slate, I'd be open to it. The growth and progression that we had hoped we were going to see this year didn't happen. It also didn't feel like it happened that much from year 1 to year 2 for Rhule. So in the current modern age of college football, what are these teams doing? They're build-a-bitching. Indiana, Oregon. They go to the portal. They more than just reload. They rely on. Ole Miss. They rely on the portal. Ole Miss had a good quarterback this year. They went to the portal. They got another quarterback. The guy ends up coming in and being like a Heisman caliber dude. OU portaled freaking hard. All these big time schools portal like crazy. So I'm very into, I'm now, before I wasn't. Before I was the guy who said, you know what? Give him time. Matt Rhule needs to build the program up. We need to, it takes a while. I'm now convinced. I'm with the people in the chat who say, fuck that. Go to the portal. It can be done faster. No more excuses. This is 2026 going into 2026. We do not need to follow the old game plan. So I get it. I say all of that, and my whole point was, I don't care who's here next year and who's not here. If you have to start over, start over. Daniel says, I'd like to see Connor as the recruiting coordinator. He has the fire and the passion. Could you imagine me as a recruiting coach at Nebraska? The way I would sell that program, first off, I'm great at sales. I've sold millions of dollars in product. I would be fantastic selling Nebraska. because I love Nebraska, and I'd find every single way to get these players to buy in. I'd love to be a college football recruiter. I'm already good at recruiting people to be fans of Nebraska. I can recruit kids. Dave, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $5 super chat. With Tulane's head coach SEC bound, would they let him bring his staff? If not, their DC, Greg Gasparotto, could be a good fit for us. I would guess he's going to take his staff. I would guess. But any and everyone is on the board, you know? I would argue Nebraska could try to reach higher, though, like go bigger splash name. Does Matt Rhule have any connection to Greg Gasparotto? I would probably guess no. I could be wrong. I don't know. I haven't looked into him at all. But I think there are bigger names on the board. I think there are going to be a lot, right? You're going to have 15 options for DC. Just like if Nebraska was going to fire their head coach, you have 15 options for head coach. We'll just have to see what the rumor mill starts to spit out over the next couple of weeks and see who Matt Rhule's actually interviewing. A lot of questions. But yeah, Tulane's been solid. I mean, there's any of these guys I would be happy with. I just want a guy who's been recently successful at a high level. Not a no-name, not a guy who's too old, like no disrespect to Phil Snow, not a guy who's, you know, a position coach from the NFL. Let's get a proven DC who can come in, be fiery. What worked with Mike Eckler is he was electric. He was fired up. He was passionate. He got players to buy in. He got the team to believe. He got the fan base to believe, and it ignited and elevated that entire unit. I would love a defensive coordinator who could do the exact same thing. A guy who's passionate and wants to build a physically tough team, tackles well, hits fucking hard, doesn't get dominated in the trenches. You need somebody who's fierce. So that's what I'm looking for. Who has the personality to match it? People want, why do people say, let's move Mike Eckler to defense? Because they love his personality, they love his fire, and they know that if he was out there coaching the defense, he'd have those guys hitting fucking hard. That's why people like him. Let's go get a guy like him. That's all I'm saying. Colby says, I wanted Bob Chesney from JMU. Hats off to UCLA. Big Ten competition only getting harder. What's going to be interesting is, you know, UCLA goes in on him. Is he going to be able to have a quick turnaround like Kurt Signetti did? He was obviously successful at JMU. Now he's going to do another Big Ten school. The hope is he's going to be able to recreate some magic. Or is it going to be a slower, tougher rebuild for him because he's going to bring some of his JMU players and he's going to go the group of four route? I don't know. Or does JMU just have some elite talent and they've got this pipeline that's built to be successful in the Big Ten? They've just been playing in that conference they've been playing in. I would argue probably not, since they lost to Louisville, but that was a road game. So who knows? I hope he's good, though. I like to see UCLA be good. Just if we're being real, I'd love to see UCLA be good. Not against Nebraska, but just in general. Mark says, love your content. Miss your more regular content. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you. Appreciate the support. Yeah, I turned this into my hobby. Took it from my full-time job to my hobby so I could focus on some other things. But I still love being here with you guys, so I still have to make the content when I can, you know? I really appreciate our community and everything we've been able to build. I've been doing this for 3 years now, doing the live streams, and it's really fun to just hang out with you and talk to you guys all about football. I don't have anybody else to talk about it with. You guys are my Nebraska friends. Drew says, Connor hitting the blackjack table. Yeah, I will be at the blackjack table for sure. But I'm a craps guy. I'll be at the dice table most of the time. I spend about 90% of my time in Vegas playing dice. Drew says, do you think Emmett plays in the bowl game? I think he does, with how much he loves his teammates. It's tough, man. I think it's a 70-30 whether he comes back or not, right? So I'm probably just going to ride that. 30% chance if he comes back, he's playing in the bowl game. 70% chance he goes to the NFL. And if he does go to the NFL, he's probably opting out. So maybe I'll say a 40% chance he plays in the bowl game. 36%. 36% chance is what I'm going to say. Nova says, we need to get Dylan Edwards if Emmett leaves. We also need to pursue Nick Marsh. Pursue Nick Marsh for sure. Don't know if they can get him. We need to get Dylan Edwards whether or not Emmett Johnson leaves. Agreed. No matter what, you have to get another running back. Dylan Edwards is electric. Top end speed has been awesome in the Big 12. Get Dylan Edwards, even if Emmett comes back. Nebraska needs another running back. No freaking doubt. Jake says, what could a bowl game upset win do for Nebraska going into the next season? Probably won't happen, but what if? It could happen, brother. Could happen. What if? If Nebraska was to beat Utah, and they were a 13.5 point underdog in that game. First off, the fan base would be on freaking fire. Second off, it would get Nebraska to 8-5, which would help them in recruiting and say, hey, we did take a step forward. Last year, we finished 7-5. This year, they finished 7-6 last year. This year, we finished 8-5. There's been improvement. You saw what we did against a really good Utah team. If they were to win that game, you'd see some positives, obviously from the offensive side of the ball. All of that could be to sell potential recruits. So it'd be a huge deal. I really would hope that they could win the bowl game. We'll have to see. I'm not predicting a bowl win. I don't even know who they're playing yet, but you get my point. Jose says Iowa's making Nebraska make moves at DC. We are shitty. It wasn't just Iowa. The Penn State game really showed how weak Nebraska was. The Minnesota game, they got out physicaled, out toughed in the Big Ten. It wasn't just Iowa, but Iowa was the dagger, 100%. Iowa was ugly. Nebraska just refused to tackle. I'm on my stream. I'll call you back. Alan, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $20 super chat. We're sitting at 125 scholarships. What do we have to get down to next year towards the 105? Trying to figure these numbers is driving me crazy, GBR. You don't have to worry about that at all, brother. They figured it out this year. They've got a guy who they pay $1 million to be their roster manager. So don't worry about that. That's never been a concern for Nebraska. They've always been under that number. And last year, that was a huge talking point. People are like, oh, well, the 105 number and this. None of that matters. There's attrition. Guys got kind of pushed out off the team who either don't fit or aren't going to play. And Nebraska finds a way. So I wouldn't worry about that, to be honest. Dash Camera, thank you for the 10 Corn Craze memberships. Everybody in the chat appreciates you. Haven't seen you in a minute, Dash Camera. What's happening? Let's see. Hyper says, what are your thoughts on Mark Stoops and the chances we have at grabbing him? I think that Mark Stoops would be fantastic, right? He'd be a great hire because he comes from the SEC, recent success. Number two, he's been a player developer. He goes and recruits 3-star players, turns them into NFL draft picks. If you go back to the last 4 or 5 draft classes at Kentucky, they had multiple first rounders at DB, linebacker, defensive end. Their defensive lines are usually good. They're a physical team who plays they play tough, and they play against teams who are better than them almost always. So they're in a similar position as Nebraska. They're like Nebraska going up against an Ohio State, Nebraska going up against an Oregon or an Indiana. They're going against Tennessee's. They're going against LSU's and Florida's. So I think Mark Stoops would understand what it would take to win at a school like Nebraska, because he's already had to do that as the head coach in another school. He's also comes from a great football family. Bob Stoops is his brother. He understands what it means to be a Nebraska coach and the importance of it, his role, and how important it is to the fan base. So I think Mark Stoops would be fantastic. Player developer, good defenses, tough physical teams. Would love to see Mark Stoops. I'm not saying that Nebraska's targeted him. I'm not creating any rumor. I'm just saying I would like it, and I think it'd be interesting. I also think there's other coaches out there who would be interesting as well. DJ Durkin, for example. DJ Durkin is freaking awesome. Let's see. JR says, what's our bowl game look like? LSU, Mizzou. I talked about this a minute ago. The bowl projections right now, very simple. It's either Music City Bowl or it's Las Vegas Bowl. Nebraska goes to the Music City Bowl. They play LSU or Missouri. They go to the Las Vegas Bowl. They're playing Utah. Most likely, they're going to the Las Vegas Bowl. The Las Vegas Bowl gets the first pick before these other ones, and they would choose Nebraska over Illinois any day. They would choose Nebraska over Iowa any day. Iowa's probably going to the bowl game in Tampa anyway because they won the 8th game. So yeah, I think it's Las Vegas Bowl is most likely, and it'd be against Utah. King says, what seniors are leaving? Let's pull up the depth chart real quick. Depth chart, Nebraska. What the fuck? Nebraska depth chart. Okay, Dane Key is gone, obviously. Henry Latovsky is gone. Rocco Spindler is gone. Turner Corcoran is gone. Heinrich Harburg is gone. Elijah Judy is gone. Deshaun McCullough is gone. Javen Wright is gone. Marquise Watson-Trent is gone. Deshaun Singleton is gone. Sierra Wright is gone. Marquise Buford is gone. It's a lot of seniors who've played significant roles. So there are a lot of guys who Nebraska's going to have to replace. But they've got some young talent. So we're optimistic they're going to be able to reload. Williams says, I hear we're meant to play LSU in a bowl game. That would be a cool game. Yeah, if Nebraska, I'll rank them for you. So if Nebraska played in the Las Vegas Bowl against Utah, that would be the absolute toughest challenge for them. Utah is the best team in the field who won't make the playoff, in my opinion. It's either them or Vandy. Utah is really freaking good, and they've only gotten better as the season's gone on. They have a great quarterback, great running back. The question will be how many of their NFL players stay and play for the bowl game, but they're still going to be a challenge. Number 2, I have to answer this. I'm sorry. What's good? Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you right now. $15.97. It's a work thing. Hang on. My delivery guy's at a smoke shop dropping off. We have to find out if he's got to pick up money. Yeah, you need to pick up 560. Thank you. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, ranking. So first was the Utah game would be the toughest Las Vegas Bowl. The second toughest would be if Nebraska played Missouri in the Music City Bowl. Missouri has Bo Prabula back. Missouri's obviously keeping Eli Drinkwitz. They're a motivated team. Their season didn't go as well as they hoped. I think they finished 7-5, 8-4, something like that. They have a lot of good talent. Ahmad Hardy would play, I think. I don't think he's a senior. Yeah, Ahmad Hardy would play. So they've got some guys. That'd be the second toughest. But Nebraska would be able to win that game. I would bet you they're a 13-point dog to Utah. They'd probably be a 7-point dog to Missouri, depending on portal and attrition before that game. Okay, if they played LSU, I think they'd be probably a 4 to 6 point dog to LSU. LSU's not very good. I think they're going to lose a lot of guys in the portal, maybe even shorter. Maybe it might be LSU -3 in the Music City Bowl. I think LSU's going to have a lot of guys hit the portal. They're going to be playing pretty light because some of their top-end players who don't want to return or who aren't invited back to return are going to explore their options. Yeah, I think LSU would probably be the easiest game, but LSU wouldn't be easy either. They're all going to be tough for Nebraska. LSU would be playing with Van Buren, I would guess, as their backup, was their backup quarterback, current starter. He came from Mississippi State. He's probably the weakest quarterback of the three. He is the weakest quarterback of the three. Bo Prabula's obviously dealt with some injury, but he was pretty good this year. Dan Pierre at Utah's the best. Yeah, LSU would be fun because it'd be really competitive. And, two huge brands in college football. Add in the Lane Kiffin storyline, makes it even more exciting. I would love to watch that game. Again, I'm rooting for Las Vegas because I'll be there. I would love, love, love to watch Nebraska in the bowl game. I haven't done that. Holiday Bowl 2014 was the last one. The answer. Yes. Okay, cool. Bye. Thank you. Yeah, so that was my LSU thought. Jose says LSU's giving Lane his playoff bonus money. It has to. LSU said you have to leave Ole Miss and come coach for us, but if they're making him do that and he's got to go and start working on building their program back, he's opting out of potentially $1 million if they make the national championship. So they got to give him his bonuses. It's only fair. When you're getting a coach of that caliber who's supposed to be coaching right now, who's ditching his team, abandoning his guys, you got to pay him his money. I totally respect that they're paying him. They have to. Makes sense. Not that money's an issue for Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's already rich and just getting richer. We're talking about, generational wealth now. He's making sure his kids are good forever. Jose says, Connor, looking at the injury reports, how come that list is always long for Nebraska versus other teams? Thoughts on player health? I don't know. I haven't really noticed that, so I can't really comment on it. I don't even look at the injury reports if I'm being real. I think I saw one. Nebraska's got a lot of young guys they have in the injury report. Maybe the other teams don't list some of their younger guys, so Nebraska just goes deeper. I'm not sure. I haven't noticed if it was any difference. I have seen Nebraska basketballs going off. Haven't watched the game yet this year, but I do see that they're winning a lot of games. JJ says, hey, Connor, what do you make of the cryptic moving on, leaving on messages on X from Barney and Latif? I said this earlier in the stream. I am very much a believer that young guys are emotional. They like attention. Again, this is no attack on any of these guys. I'm not talking shit. I just have friends. I'm 32 now, but when I was 25, 23, whatever, I had friends who were on social media posting up real just gay shit, like being like simps, like just lame, like they're looking for girl attention or they're looking for support, and they're just posting up stuff that attracts attention, that attracts a bunch of messages. And again, this is not a target Nebraska players. I'm not saying they're doing this. I just know young guys and how they do this shit. They go on Instagram and they put these things up that make other people want to respond. And then their DMs get flooded, their egos get filled, and they feel good. They're like, oh my God, okay, good. It's like a little dopamine boost for them. So I tend to believe all these college football players who are 18 to 22 go on social media and they post things to get a rise because they like how it makes them feel. It's a toxic Instagram social media culture. So I don't think anything into it. Like, I'm not putting any energy into it. That could just be, let me go and get a little bit of attention real quick. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. I've just seen that happen so many times with guys I'm friends with that I totally ignore social media. And I'm just like, you guys are being kind of weird. Like, that's not my vibe. I don't do that. It's kind of like the people who will go on, giving you guys another real world analogy. They'll go online and be like, oh, I'm about to start this business and I'm going to do this and this and this. And then they never do anything, right? Like, they hype everything up, but they're all talk, no action. You see a lot of that on social media. So I don't pay attention. They want to go and get their clicks. They want to go and get their love from fans or from girls or whatever they're trying to do. Have fun. I'm not talking about it. I don't know. Rally says Connor's doing underground vape trades. It's not underground. It's legal THCA. Legal in the states that we sell in. Legal. All of it. Darren says we're going to lose the bowl game. Never say never. You don't know what the roster is going to look like. You don't know what the other team's roster is going to look like. Bowl season has totally changed over the past 3-4 years. Teams that shouldn't win games, win games. You have a lot of chaos and craziness. So don't get too worried about it. Again, I don't even know who they're playing yet. Drew says maybe they just like the songs, LMAO. Exactly. So some of these guys could just like those songs and they want to put up something about, oh, I want to put up a picture of myself and I want to put this song that has some deeper meaning to me than just I'm going to hit the transfer portal. Again, I don't look at social media like that. People get real sensitive and people do stuff on social media that isn't a direct reflection of what they're going to do. It's just an in the moment deal. But guys, I've been on here for an hour and 15 minutes. I've answered a lot of questions. We talked about a lot football wise. It has been a great time. I don't know what day we'll talk again. Maybe later this week, depending on what news comes out, and when there's stuff to talk about, I'll be back on. So I talked about a lot in the stream. If you didn't get to see all of it, you can rewind, watch from the beginning. We covered a lot. But as stuff happens, I'll make sure I'm live here and we'll do some more. So I appreciate you guys always. I look forward to watching these conference championships this week. And I look forward to Nebraska getting announced into a good bowl game that we can all enjoy before we see the transfer portal really turn up. So until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.